Welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights.
My name is Lora Cecere. I'm the founder of Supply Chain Insights, and today I want to welcome you to Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. This is a podcast that's designed for the supply chain leader who's on the go, wants to be in the know, and wants to talk innovation. Today I am interviewing Trace Gaines, and Trace Gaines has a unique model to connect food ingredient buyer and sellers across the supply chain. We're not very collaborative in the supply chain, and Trace Gaines is trying to change that by introducing the manifesto. And today we're going to talk about what is the manifesto and how do we improve trading partner relationships. So I've got Gary and Paul here. Paul, tell me about Trace Gaines. Why should people care?
Sure. Well, Trace Gaines is the world's first real global networked ingredients marketplace connecting brands and suppliers around the world. We also have a whole array of enterprise services for CPG brands, ranging from compliance to new product development and on out to the plant floor.
Okay, good. And, as you think about Trace Gaines, how long have you guys been doing this?
So Paul and I have been doing this for just over 2 years, but Trace Gaines has been in business for more than 15 years when it originally was founded. We've gone through a number of iterations over the course of our evolution as a company, and most recently we're particularly proud of the networked ingredient marketplace that we've launched called Trace Gaines Gather.
And that's fun. And that gets us to the manifesto. But before we get there, what I want to do is, Gary, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and Paul, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. And Gary, you go first. Real short snippets there.
Sure. I'm Gary Owls. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at Trace Gaines.
And why are you excited about the manifesto?
I'm excited because it really is a document that represents the voice of the market. And so it's not just Trace Gaines' perspective on the market. It's really coming from more than 1,000 customers, 20,000 suppliers across 156 countries, representing close to 70,000 supplier locations on the planet. So this is a broad market swath that has communicated with us over the years, and we've distilled it down into a very consumable one-page format that everyone can understand.
And how did you get the data from all those people across all those continents and all those countries over all those years? What methodology did you use?
We use several. I mean, first, we were in constant conversation with our clients through our onboarding process, through meeting them at trade shows, through speaking engagements like this. We get constant feedback. We have a number of user forums and executive forums that we conduct annually. So a wealth of information coming from those. We've also conducted a number of surveys as well that give us feedback and insights into what the market is looking for at any particular point in time. So we've always been a very connected company to our customers, but the market in general.
So you've listened and you tried to learn, and then you've done some surveys and now around it. Now, Paul, I understand that you've got a real passion for R&D, and tell us a little bit about what you do at Trace Gaines.
Yeah, so I lead product marketing for Trace Gaines. Absolutely. I have really fallen in love with the innovation side of the food and beverage industry. There is so much going on and so many really cool people involved. It's impossible not to be fascinated.
Okay, so the first element of the manifesto is the rise of the users has occurred. Tell me about that, the superheroes, and how are you making them smarter?
We believe that it's the end users that are getting it done in the industry. And those folks have an array of challenges on their plate. And we're astonished that they're able to get their jobs done at all, given the volume of information that they have to handle on a daily basis, the number of partner relationships and business relationships that they have to maintain, the number of shared documents that they have to pull together and have on hand at any one point in time to either satisfy specifications, confirmations, or even regulatory requirements. The wealth of information that they're dealing with is more than overwhelming. It's the end users that have really risen up and taken control to make quick decisions, get the information that they need, and to drive resolution to the problems that they were facing during the pandemic years and beyond. So we want to acknowledge that, and we design all of our solutions to be really end user solutions.
So you're improving usability of the network to drive improvements in work. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay. And Paul, businesses need instant insights and answers. Do you want that one, or you want Gary to talk about it?
Well, let me touch on that one really quick, Laura, because that's actually coming from a conversation that we had with you. All end users to really do the jobs that they were hired on for, not chase down documents, understand whether or not there's a disruption occurring in the marketplace. When all of these things can be done in an automated fashion, by giving them automation, they can focus on their jobs. And we think that takes us a long way to avoiding supply chain disruptions in the future.
Well, you know, we've got a lot of automation in our personal life, right? And we don't in the enterprise. In fact, when I go to companies, they say, "How come I can see when, my pizza's coming for lunch, but I can't see the inbound supplier to my factory or if, which purchase order they're actually working off of?" So, it's not so easy. So, how about the next one? Food and beverage companies need to innovate or perish.
It sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm telling you, as I talk to more and more food scientists and R&D professionals out there, it's actually a pretty serious perspective. We have got to innovate as an industry. The global food supply chain has got to develop and got to change for us really to have at least the kind of future that we want for ourselves and our kids. Some folks would say to have a future, period. It really speaks to the passion that I mentioned earlier, Laura, that I see in the R&D community. And we can't help but be inspired by that at every turn. The importance of innovation for all of us going forward is massive. And the drive is there in the industry to do it. What's not always there is the connection, the collaboration, and the tool sets to do that as quickly and as effectively as we need to.
I think the innovation is not only an existential risk for planet one, for all of us, but it's also for companies as they progress. We see a lot of companies that fail to innovate, and they're the stories of yesteryear now. They're being overtaken by new startups.
Well, and we certainly see that the smaller companies are innovating to a greater degree in food and beverage, right? Look at Monster, right? Supply Chain to Admire Award winner versus, somebody like Anheuser-Busch, which has struggled with profitability and, the ability to control inventory. Okay, so we got to innovate. And we also need to be able to support our claims, right? We've got a lot of claims that we need to support, whether it's something about the product or ESG or provenance. So, who wants to talk a little bit about that in the manifesto?
Sure. I think traceability is growing, and it's becoming more and more important as a product feature, right? It's not just that you claim your dolphin safe, you need to be able to prove that. So as consumer awareness and the ability to research these things becomes more prominent, not only making the claims and doing the right things that consumers are looking for and the right things for the planet, but being able to prove that through a credible supply chain is increasingly important.
How many layers or levels of the supplier base are you able to actually get transparency on?
So for us, we're not as directly focused on the traceability transparency side of it in terms of working through multiple tiers of the supply chain. What we're really focused on is for each supplier that an organization is working on, wherever they may sit in that specific supply chain's tier structure, we want customers to be able to understand that supplier, not just in terms of the basics of traceability information, but really from a 360-degree view, encompassing supplier performance, so that as you do dig in and do that hard work on full end-to-end traceability, you're doing that with the right partners and you're doing that with people where that investment is going to have the right return for you.
Okay, and then the next one, which I think these are closely linked, fraud is putting the safety of our industry at risk. So let's talk about fraud. How do you define it? What's a nefarious actor? And how do you basically give visibility to an issue?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this when I wrote a blog post about this just a few weeks ago, looking at seafood, and there was an EU study that I cited there. It looked at snapper, and it found that 70% of the snapper, big quotes around snapper, in the sample set was something else. There were 38 different species just in that sample set alone, some of which were protected. I mean, that's a particularly flagrant and probably kind of gross example. But, we definitely know that food fraud, economically motivated adulteration is happening across a swath of products. We know the usual suspects, but it's all over the place in the global supply chain. This is one of the places where really being able to lean into global intelligence, being able to understand things that are happening, maybe even outside of your direct supply chain, but inside of the ecosystem of suppliers that you're working with, and being able to get that data, make it immediately available at decision time and action it is so, so important. And one of the things that we're really we're connected to is that notion of how can we really expand visibility into the global environment of data collection that's surrounding the supplier ecosystem.
And what do you think that looks like?
Well, for example, if there is an contamination issue, an importation issue, or food fraud issue that's detected in a supplier or with a supplier that I'm working with, maybe not on a product that I'm dealing with, but something that supplier is involved with elsewhere, that can be really useful information for me to know. It can also be really difficult information for me to know if I have to just go out there and search for it. One of the things that TraceGains does is we plug you into a global networked intelligence suite that allows you to actually watch that supplier, monitor their activity worldwide. And if something happens, even if it's not in your supply chain, be proactively alerted of that so that you know that's happening and you can take action. There's many other things that are necessary, but that's one aspect of where we're directly trying to impact that.
So sort of like rating and reviews or cases where I can see that a supplier had an issue or a product had an issue?
Yeah, exactly. But importantly, pushing that information to me as a decision maker, right? Not just making it something I've got to know to look for, but putting it in front of me in the flow of work when that happens is important.
So proactive alerting. Good.
Exactly.
Okay. Digitalization is essential for survival. We'll start a conversation with what is digital?
Digital in today's world is not just bits and bytes. It is the ability to decompose information down to its smallest core component so that it can then be reassembled with other valuable information. And that has to be clearly done in the digital format. So let me give you a contrast. A lot of folks today will view a PDF as a digital document, and it is. The problem with that is that the valuable information that's contained within that PDF, if it's not decomposed by ingredient, by location, right? If it's not decomposed in a way that it can be used and attributed to other things within an ecosystem and in a supply chain, then you're not getting the value of digitization out of that document. So think of the vast amount of industry that we have across the planet, in number of suppliers, number of manufacturers, the sheer number of products that are produced and consumed by the mass market. Each one of those is then decomposed into hundreds of points of data that are associated with that. And then against that, there could be hundreds of points of data associated with that individual piece of information that includes the things we talked about: ESG information, regulatory information, whether or not it's adulterated, risk profiles, et cetera. The amount of information is exploding. So digitization is TraceGains' way of absorbing all of this information and allowing users and allowing companies to react to it through automation, through intelligence, through artificial intelligence, so that they can improve their operations and really focus on meeting their market needs.
Well, it's a lot about the movement from integration to interoperability, right? And being able to preserve the semantic layer. So the supply chain future is all about cooperation, and that's number 7 on your manifesto. Let's talk about that. What do you mean when you say cooperation is the future of the supply chain, and how does your system enable that?
It's very closely related to what we were just speaking about in terms of all of the information that's out there in a complex global supply chain. No one organization, no one solution has it all. So we really do need to be thinking about interoperability. We really do need to be thinking about how information from around the global supply chain can come together. We are extremely proud to work with a number of different data partners. SGS DigiComply is a wonderful partner of ours who is out there with boots on the ground around the world, collecting incident data, risk data, but also regulatory information from inside all these different jurisdictions. And we're gradually enriching that with more and more information that is ESG related, whether that's labor or carbon or water footprint. And there's much, much, much more to come on that journey for us as we look forward. We've got to be committed to how we can really leverage the best information information from around the world and make it consumable.
So we're better together, right? That's the next one.
This has always been core to TraceGains since the very beginning. We've believed this. We're not the only ones on the planet that believe this as well. But we think that by working together, we can have a competitive industry, but we can have a better competitive industry, one that competes on the merits of the products that they put out to the customers, one that serves the market better. And we believe we can take unnecessary costs out of our business by just operating more efficiently together. So there's a wealth of benefit that we get from cooperation and working together that is indisputable.
As we think about the manifesto, we're not only stronger together, but we got to change, right? And now's the time to change. Why is now the time to change? Number 9.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons we could point to. Gary mentioned customer surveys that we do, or market surveys, a couple times a year. Earlier this year, we just asked people, how are you feeling? How is your workload? And 85% of respondents to that survey indicated that they are overworked at least some of the time. And in an industry where we already struggle with turnover, we already struggle with labor, we already are at risk of losing some of our highest value folks to other careers, we got to take that seriously. The users are the heroes of the supply chain, and they have worked their tails off for the last 3.5 or 4 years. Only one example out of many, right? I think consumers are asking for a different kind of world. I think that, as I mentioned, there's a huge drive on the sustainability front, which is valid and something we need to be listening to very carefully. All of this has got to come together into how we work, not just more efficiently, but how we work better, how we unite, how we really orient towards things that are meaningful for the industry and for the people in it.
Look, if we thought we had a great supply chain and great processes, that was all exposed through the pandemic, right? The supply chain crashed, and it crashed on many fronts. Or to stick with the metaphor, the supply chain broke, and it broke all over the place. To go forward, we can't just reassemble that same chain and hope things are going to get better. They're not. We need a different paradigm. Folks are still running many of their recipes off of Excel or sourcing off of Excel documents. Again, with the vast amount of information that's coming, with the advent of artificial intelligence actually helping to create automation and more insights into very large volumes of data, the companies that move towards digitization and efficient, automated, intelligent processes, they are going to win. And so we want everybody to join into that endeavor. We don't want just a few companies who've been privileged and can make big investments to capitalize on these capabilities to be the only winners. We all benefit if we have a rich, robust, competitive environment that are producing things that the consumers want. And we need more players to do that. We can't just have a few companies, monopolies or oligopolies, deliver those products to market. We need startups. We need innovation. That's how we progress.
And we wouldn't have a supply chain without ingredients, right? The base level, we got to move atoms. So, and that's really what your network's all about, right? It is connecting buyers and sellers of ingredients. But let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in this value chain to drive that decision and improve those flows.
Yeah, our tagline for a while has been that in the molecular structure of the global food and beverage supply chain, right, ingredients really are the atom. They are that atomic unit. And just like we all learned in chemistry class, they're surrounded by this halo of information which isn't always visible and isn't always actionable. And we really believe that if you can unlock the information that is surrounding the ingredients that are moving through the supply chain, not just their physical attributes or their characteristics, but all those other things we've been talking about, where they're from, what are the conditions under which they were created, what was the agricultural environment looking like where those came from, what was the water consumption story along that journey, right? The more that we can understand those things at that component level, the more that we can really aggregate those things together into products, into SKUs that are fully informed by all that information, that are moving us further down the path that we're all trying to go as far as the evolution of the industry.
It's hard though, right? I mean, because there's so many ingredients and the information, needs to be cataloged and maintained and updated. And, it requires a lot of work. And so you're simplifying it for the industry. And, I'm proud of you for doing it. Now, one of the things your network does is it addresses the ESG real problems of today and tomorrow, and 70% of the ESG impact is actually in the networks. And unfortunately, people are investing more in enterprise solutions than network. So, how does your system, and why is this a part of the manifesto that ESG addresses the real problems of today and tomorrow? How do you help people with the ESG goals?
I'll start first by saying we firmly believe that business ecosystems are the way of the future. You've talked about that. Business ecosystems contain networks that allow information to move seamlessly across that network. It allows people to connect, allows business to get done quickly. But it provides information and context as well. And so the important thing about a business ecosystem and the network that TraceGains has created is we can now start to consume third-party information like risk profiles, like regulatory compliance, like ESG information, and we can apply that to the suppliers, the locations, the ingredients in the ecosystem, and we can do that automatically. And that becomes increasingly important because there is no single definition of ESG. ESG is a growing body of information and concerns that are being surfaced all over the world. And Europe has taken a very advanced posture to this, and they're being very assertive and really driving the rest of the planet to kind of abide by the concepts that are emerging from Europe around ESG. So by creating both the infrastructure as well as the attach points for more information to enter the ecosystem, we're going to be in a position to not only address today's concerns of ESG, but what emerges in the future next week, next year, 4 years, 5 years from now.
So if someone has a ESG goal around ingredients and food and beverage, they should call you, right? Because the last part of the manifesto is just really resonating with me. And it's just so really powerful. We'll do our part so you can do yours, is the last part of the manifesto. And what is that promise? Tell me about it.
You know, yeah, when we talk about sustainability, at the end of the day, we're talking about product innovation, right? We're talking about the ability to do new things. The things that we've done for the last few decades are not the things that are going to create the future that we're all striving towards. So, I'm really looking at the potential that is out there for the industry to change, the exciting innovation that's happening with smaller scale organizations, with young organizations that aren't afraid to dream, that aren't afraid to imagine something very different. That's incredibly exciting. We've got to stay committed to that. And we've got to make sure that, hey, we love our large customers and they're doing some great things too. Some of them are actually great engines of innovation, but we really continue to be energized by what's happening in emerging sectors of the market. And we think that's going to continue to just be so exciting in the years to come.
We're quickly becoming the networked ecosystem orchestrator for the supply chain when it relates to food and beverage. And we take that responsibility that we've grown into very, very seriously. And we believe that if we don't give back and provide a means for the rest of the industry to satisfy their needs, to work together, and to deliver better products and services to the global market, that we'd be shirking the responsibility that we've been given by being the biggest network on the planet for food and beverage. So it's our commitment. It's our visible commitment to the industry. It's our visible commitment to consumers, and it's our visible commitment to continue to evolve this product for everyone in the supply chain.
Well, how exciting. I love principle-based leadership. I like your manifesto. If only we had clear principles and boundaries from other players. Paul and Gary, thank you for joining me today on Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights, and I hope everyone makes your conference in January. It's a virtual event, and it's a great time to find out more about how to drive this value chain to basically make the food and beverage industry more effective. All the best. Thank you, gentlemen.